So basically, let's touch on the first one. I think so. One thing that I found is, I mean, so dev to so that progression from I start out as an individual contributor. Let's say as I start out as a junior, everyone has to start out as a junior, and you got to go through kind of the hoops, and then eventually you become senior enough that people trust you to make big decisions, right? Like they trust you to either manage people or they trust you to make big architectural decisions. We're sort of fortunate in our industry that you could do either one and make a lot of money. We had even like at Walmart, right? Like definitely a jet, but like at Walmart we had like architects that were making more money than me as senior director, right? But and so you have to sort of allow for
Right.
that career progression in these companies. It's very important. And basically, once you get to like a certain level in your career, you can make this kind of decision. Now, how do you become a people manager and versus an architect? I mean, so in my teams, and we were very fortunate. We got to play around and try these things out. These are very different jobs. And so what we did is we sort of, with a lot of handholding, let someone trial the manager path, if you will. And when mid-year conversation happened or end of year conversation, I was in the room with them and the individual just to make sure that everything's going well and just like helping them out, right? Not in a sense like trying to do the mid-year conversation, but if any like really tough questions come up, I could be there. So having a place where you could do that transition safely is like really important, because if you become a manager and you find out you're bad at it, then what? Then you got to like quit your job and go somewhere else, and
Right.
so you have to be in a place where you could ease off in one direction or the other. And frankly, I mean, if I look at my own career, I've sort of veered a little bit on both sides, right? Like I still build stuff. And so I've kept a lot of my tech skills sharp. And I think what happens is a lot of people move into this management path and they completely lose their tech skills. And then it makes it really hard and they kind of get stuck because they can't go and pass an interview somewhere else. And they can't, and a lot of these higher tech organizations, they require you to have basic data structures and algorithms and also basic design skills, especially like if you're a manager, you have to know what the team's talking about when they present you an architecture or whatever it is. So those things I think are like really important, having like a safe way to transition. So I'd say if your goal is to trial the manager path, find a good place where you could do that and make sure you talk to your manager and make sure you partner up with your manager that they can help you. And I know this sounds like scary because the manager might say, oh, but it sort of behooves the manager too, right? Like it's going to help them a lot because now they're going to be able to offload 5 or 6 reports or 10 reports under this person over time. And they're going to get to grow their team into multiple teams. And so if you bring that up to them and you have that conversation, you say, look, I want to take over as my goal is to become a manager. Can you help me? Can you handhold me? Can we do these reviews with these people? Together? And if I like it, you could step out of the room. If I hate it, I'd like to maybe go into the architect path. And just have those conversations. I think having that environment is so important. We kind of set that up. And then I think basically going to the next level, which is now we're talking about a manager of managers. I think that's a very sort of different thing, right? And basically as you kind of going into like middle management, which is what it is at a lot of big companies. And now you run multiple teams and you're more in charge of kind of strategy and direction and really tough people stuff. Like you've got to, somebody has to go on a PIP or whatever. Like, it kind of cascades into nothing but people stuff as you kind of go into those N1 or N2, right? And so you have to really love people stuff. And if your goal is to help people get ahead and do that, then I think it's a wise move to go in that direction, because I mean that's you got to keep growing, right? So you can't. I mean, you've kind of become a manager now, and you either go to manage multiple teams, or you step back and you become an architect and go down that path, right? But you can't kind of. It's kind of hard to do both because you've got to build up these skill sets, and what it means on the management side is like you've got to see a lot of different situations. I mean, you're gonna have to go through some tough stuff, like even letting somebody go. I mean, that's a really difficult thing, and I seen CEOs mess that up, and so it's like. Yeah, I mean, that
Oh
was,
yeah.
so my point is, as you're kind of progressing up these paths, you got to have a strong intuition and gut that that's what you want to do. And if you do, then you double down and you learn those things. You read books on it. You do whatever it takes to pick up that skill set. You find mentors that are there, and you have them, like, coach you through different circumstances, different things that they've gone through. So basically, I think, we're very fortunate in an industry. You don't even need to go down that path to make a lot of money. And there are CTOs at startups and even bigger companies that don't have a lot of reports. I mean, they just set the strategy, and they do, they don't have 1,000 reports that they do one-on-ones with. It's and so I think you can go really high up basically on either track, make a lot of money if that's your goal, but you should pick the one you love the most. And I think once you kind of know that that's the one you love the most, you want to do your research. You want to find mentors. You want to find people that are going to help you every step of the way. Basically, I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but that's how I see it progressing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. No, it does. It does. So, Louis, I have a second question which I faced a lot of problem fixing this issue was I was in Microsoft, and then I left and
Sure.
went to a startup. So that startup was, pretty big as such. It's not very small. My team was about 100 devs. And the problem there I was struggling with was making the vision flow down all the way, because I see the leaders generally get successful, or the companies, because they build a product where they have this vision, which is somebody on top maybe thinking or coming up with the idea of a product or services. And I see some big companies do this very well, like Microsoft, Google, Amazon.